The stars were quiet that night. Admiral stood on the bridge of her ship, the Eternal Dawn, and watched the darkness of space through the wide windows. She was a tall woman with short black hair and calm eyes. Nothing in her face showed what she was feeling, but inside her heart was beating fast. 300 years. That was how long humanity had waited. 300 years of pretending to be weak. 300 years of bowing to aliens who looked at humans like they were insects. 300 years of building in secret, hiding in the shadows of asteroids, working in places where no alien eye could see. And now the waiting was over. Captain walked up beside her. He was younger than, with a quick smile and sharp mind. But today, there was no smile on his face. He held a data pad in his hand, and his fingers were white from gripping it too hard. "The reports are confirmed," he said quietly. 3 colonies, Verdant 7 New and Hope's Landing. The Empire has destroyed them all. Did not move, she did not blink. How many dead? 2.3 million. Men, women, and children. They called it a cleansing operation. His voice cracked slightly. They killed them like they were cleaning dirt from a floor. For a long moment said nothing. She thought about those colonies. They had been built in secret, far from Earth, in systems the alien empires did not watch closely. Families had gone there to start new lives. Children had been born there, had learned to walk under alien suns, had never known the prison that Earth had become. And now they were gone, burned away because humans had dared to spread beyond their cage. "Contact Chief Engineer," said finally. Her voice was as cold as the space outside. "Tell her to wake the fleets." His eyes widened. All of them. All of them. Deep in the asteroid belt, in shipyards hidden inside hollowed rocks, something stirred. For decades these places had been silent, their workers living in darkness, their ships waiting like sleeping giants. The galactic sovereignty, the alliance of 12 alien empires that ruled the galaxy, had watched humanity carefully. They had sent inspectors to Earth every year. They had scanned human ships and laughed at their primitive engines. They had limited human technology, limited human travel, limited human growth. They thought they had seen everything. They had seen nothing. Received the order in her control room, buried 3 kilometers inside an asteroid. She was a small woman with tired eyes and oil-stained hands. She had spent 40 years of her life in this place, building ships that were never meant to exist, developing technology that was supposed to be impossible. The fold drive, that was her greatest creation. The aliens traveled through hyperspace, tearing holes in reality that could be detected from light years away. But the fold drive was different. It did not tear space. It folded it like folding a piece of paper so that 2 distant points touched, and it left no trace, no signature, no warning. The aliens would never see them coming. "All stations," spoke into her communicator, "begin activation sequence, authorization code, Silent Thunder." Across 12 hidden shipyards, 400 warships began to wake. Lights flickered on in dark corridors. Engines that had never fired began to hum with power. Crews who had trained for years in simulation chambers now walked onto real bridges, sat in real chairs, and touched real controls. On the Eternal Dawn, watched the status reports flow across her screen. 400 ships. Each one was smaller than the massive dreadnoughts of the alien empires, but packed with technology the aliens could not imagine. Weapons that could crack shields in seconds. Engines that could outrun anything in the galaxy. And the fold drive which made them ghosts. "All ships report ready," announced. There was something new in his voice now, something that sounded like hope mixed with anger. "Awaiting your command, Admiral." Turned away from the window, she looked at her bridge crew, young faces, old faces, all of them watching her. They had all lost someone in the colonies. They all had reasons to fight. 3 centuries ago, began, her voice carrying across the silent bridge, the galactic sovereignty came to Earth. They looked at us and saw primitives. They saw a species that had barely left its own planet. They decided we were dangerous, not because of what we were, but because of what we might become. She walked slowly across the bridge, her boots clicking against the metal floor. They put us in a cage. They told us where we could go and where we could not. They watched us, controlled us, and laughed at us. And when we tried to grow, when we tried to give our children new worlds to live on, they murdered them. Her voice grew harder. They thought we were weak. They thought we would accept our place. They thought we would bow forever. She stopped and turned to face the main where the stars waited. They were wrong. She raised her hand. All ships engage fold drives. Target coordinates are the military installations across 17 systems. We strike simultaneously. We strike hard. And we show them what humanity has become. Across the asteroid belt, 400 ships shimmered and vanished. There was no flash of light, no tear in space. They simply folded away, traveling instantly across distances that would take alien ships weeks to cross. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, stood beside as the stars streaked and changed around them. In seconds, they would arrive at their target, the heart of the Empire. They thought we were sleeping, he said quietly. Nodded, they were wrong. The fold drive disengaged. The eternal dawn appeared in normal space, surrounded by her fleet. Before them hung a massive alien space station, bristling with weapons, orbiting a green and blue planet. The aliens had not seen them coming. The aliens had no warning. The aliens were just beginning to realize that something was very, very wrong. Looked at the station, at the ships scrambling to respond, at the empire that had killed 2 million of her people. All ships, she said calmly, open fire. And the war began. High Regent had lived for 800 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had commanded fleets that burned across 1,000 star systems. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and built the throne of into the most powerful force in the galactic sovereignty. He had never known fear. Today, standing in his war room on the capital world of Slight, surrounded by his generals and advisors, he learned what fear felt like. What do you mean they appeared? His voice was sharp, cutting through the panicked chatter of his officers. Ships do not simply appear. There are always signatures. There are always warnings. Advisor stepped forward. She was old for her species, her gray skin covered in the ritual scars of her rank. Her job was to know everything about humanity. She had watched them for 2 centuries. She had read every report, analyzed every scan, studied every piece of technology they possessed. She had failed completely. High Regent, she said, her voice trembling, the humans have technology we did not anticipate. Their ships emerged from what we can only describe as folded space. There was no hyperspace tunnel, no tachyon signature, no warning of any kind. They simply materialized. Slammed his fist on the table. Impossible. We monitored them. We inspected their ships. They had primitive fusion drives, basic weapons, nothing that could. They deceived us. Interrupted him, something she had never dared to do before. For 300 years they showed us what we wanted to see. They hid their real capabilities. They built in secret. And now, she gestured at the screens around them, each one showing a different disaster. Now we see the truth. The screens told a terrible story. Across 17 star systems, human warships had appeared without warning. Military stations were burning. Defense fleets were being torn apart. The attacks were happening simultaneously, coordinated with impossible precision. In the system, 40 human ships had destroyed an entire orbital defense network in 11 minutes. In the sector, of 60 ships had engaged 20 human vessels. The no longer existed. At the Forge of Ancestors, the shipyard that produced 1/3 of the Warfleet, fires were burning that could be seen from space. And everywhere, the same report. The humans had appeared without warning and struck before anyone could react. Lieutenant commanded one of those human ships. The Whisper was a stealth frigate, small and fast, designed for quick strikes and quick escapes. She was young, only 28 years old, but she had trained for this moment her entire life. Her target was the orbital command station above Slight itself, the heart of the Empire. "All weapons ready," her tactical officer reported. "Enemy shields at full power. They're launching fighters." Watch the alien station on her screen. It was massive, 10 kilometers across, armed with weapons that could crack moons. They had built it to be unbreakable. They had not planned for an enemy they could not see coming. "Target their shield generators," ordered. "Fire everything." The Whisper's weapons were not large, but they were precise. Concentrated beams of energy struck the station's shield generators with surgical accuracy. Human weapons technology had advanced far beyond what the aliens knew. Each shot carried more power, focused more tightly, than anything they had ever faced. The shields flickered, stuttered, failed. "Shields are down," her officer shouted. "Direct hit on primary generator." Allowed herself a small smile. "Signal the fleet, the door is open." Behind her, more human ships emerged from fold space. Destroyers, cruisers, and 3 massive dreadnoughts that had never been seen by alien eyes. They poured fire into the defenseless station. In his war room, watched his command station die. Explosions bloomed across its surface. Sections broke away and tumbled into the planet's atmosphere. Thousands of his soldiers, his officers, his people, died in moments. "Casualties," he demanded. "Give me numbers." An officer scrolled through reports with shaking hands. 14 major installations destroyed or heavily damaged. 207 warships confirmed lost. Estimated personnel casualties exceed 50,000, and the attacks are still ongoing. Our response. The officer swallowed hard. "We have killed 0 enemy ships, High Regent, 0. The room went silent, stared at the screens, watching his empire burn. For 800 years the throne of had been supreme. For 800 years nothing had challenged them. Now in less than an hour, everything had changed. "How," he whispered, "how did primitives do this?" Shook her head. "They were never primitives, High Regent. We only thought they were because that is what they wanted us to think. We underestimated them. We dismissed them. We caged them and killed their children and thought there would be no consequences." She looked at the burning station on the screen. "We were fools." His hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists, trying to hide his fear. But everyone in the room could see it. Everyone knew. The throne of the mightiest empire in the galaxy was afraid. "Send a message to the Council of 12, ordered. "Tell them we need immediate military support. Tell them the humans have declared war. Tell them." He stopped. On the screen, the orbital command station exploded in a final, massive fireball. The light was so bright that it lit up the night side of Slight. "Tell them everything has changed." Far above, Lieutenant watched the station die. She felt no joy. 2 million of her people had been murdered in the colonies. Nothing could bring them back, but this was the beginning of justice. "Mission complete," she said quietly. "All ships prepare for fold. We have more targets to hit." The human fleet shimmered and vanished, leaving nothing behind but wreckage and fire. And in his war room, High Regent sat down heavily in his chair. His hands would not stop shaking. For the first time in 800 years, he understood a simple truth. The hunters had become the hunted. The Council of 12 met on Nexus Prime, an ancient built before any living species could remember. It was the center of galactic power, the place where the 12 greatest empires gathered to decide the fate of civilizations. Today, they gathered to decide the fate of humanity. Ambassador Minu walked into the council chamber with chains on his wrists. 2 armored guards stood beside him, their weapons ready. The 12 alien rulers watched from their high seats, looking down at him like judges examining an insect. Minu was a thin man with gray hair and a gentle face. For 30 years, he had served as humanity's official representative to the sovereignty. He had smiled at insults. He had bowed to demands. He had played the role of the humble primitive, the grateful guest, the harmless human. It had all been an act. Grand Arbiter, the oldest being in the sovereignty, rose from his central throne. His body was twisted by age, his skin like cracked leather, but his eyes were still sharp. He had ruled the council for 2,000 years. "Human," said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you stand accused of crimes against galactic order. Your species has launched unprovoked attacks on the throne of. You have destroyed military installations and killed thousands. You have developed forbidden technology. You have broken 17 treaties." Minyu looked up at the ancient alien. His chains clinked softly. "Unprovoked," he said. The word was quiet, but it carried. Frowned, "You will speak only when." "Unprovoked," Minyu said again, louder this time. "You call our attacks unprovoked," he laughed. It was not a happy sound. High Regent ordered the destruction of 3 human colonies. 2.3 million people, including 400,000 children, were murdered. They were burned alive in their homes, shot in the streets, hunted like animals. And you call our response unprovoked? The chamber stirred. Some of the rulers shifted uncomfortably. Others leaned forward with interest. "Those colonies were illegal," said coldly. "Humans were forbidden to leave their designated system. The throne of was enforcing galactic law." "Galactic law," Minyu shook his head slowly. "You call it law, but it is a cage. For 300 years you have kept us trapped in one system. You have limited our technology, our growth, our future. You have treated us like prisoners because you are afraid of what we might become." "We are not afraid of primitives," one of the other rulers said with a sneer. Minyu turned to look at him. "Then why am I in chains? Why did you need 17 treaties to control a primitive species? Why did you send inspectors every year to make sure we stayed weak?" He smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. "You were never trying to protect the galaxy from us. You were trying to protect yourselves." The chains fell from his wrists. They had never been locked. Minyu rubbed his wrists calmly as the guard stepped back in confusion. "The treaties are void," he said. "The throne of voided them when they murdered our people. We are no longer your prisoners. We are no longer your primitives. We are humanity, and we have come to show you what that means." Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Commander led her soldiers through the burning streets of Verdant 7. The colony had been beautiful once. Green parks, white buildings, families walking under an orange sky. Now it was a graveyard. Bodies lay in the streets. Buildings were blackened shells. They had been thorough in their cleansing. But they had not been thorough enough. Was a tall woman with strong arms and kind eyes. She had been a soldier for 20 years. She had trained for war her entire adult life, but nothing had prepared her for what she saw on Verdant 7. "Commander," one of her soldiers called out, "we found survivors, a shelter in the underground transit system, almost 2,000 people." Ran toward the location. Her powered armor made her fast, covering ground in great leaping strides. She found a group of her soldiers gathered around an entrance that had been hidden beneath rubble. Inside the shelter she found them. Men and women, elderly and young, all packed together in the darkness. They had hidden when they came. They had stayed silent as death walked above them. They had survived. And among them were children. A little girl, maybe 7 years old, stood near the entrance. Her clothes were torn and dirty. Her eyes were empty, the eyes of someone who had seen too much. Knelt down in front of her. She removed her helmet so the girl could see her face. "Hey," she said softly, "you're safe now. The bad people are gone." The girl did not respond. She just stared. "What's your name?" asked. For a long moment there was no answer. Then in a tiny voice, "My name is." "That's a pretty name." Reached out and gently took the girl's hand. "I'm Commander. I'm a soldier from Earth. I came here to help you." "My parents," whispered. The soldiers took them, they took everyone. Felt her heart break. She had seen the bodies outside. She knew what had happened to this girl's parents. She knew she could not fix that pain, could not bring back the dead, could not undo what had been done. But she could make a promise. Listen to me. His voice was firm but gentle. What happened here was terrible. The people who did this are going to pay for what they did. I promise you that. And I promise you something else. She squeezed the girl's hand. This will never happen again. Never. Do you understand? Humanity will never let this happen again. Looked at her, something flickered in those empty eyes. Not hope, not yet, but maybe the beginning of hope. Okay, the girl said quietly. Stood up and looked around at the survivors. 800,000 people had lived on Verdant 7. Now, fewer than 100,000 remained, but they were alive. They had survived, and humanity would rebuild. Back on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Minu delivered humanity's terms. Unconditional surrender of all forces responsible for the colony attacks, full reparations to the families of the victims, recognition of human sovereignty over all our claimed territories. You have 72 hours to respond. Grand Arbiter stared at him with ancient, angry eyes. And if we refuse? Minu turned and walked toward the exit. At the door, he paused and looked back. Then we will continue our response, and you will learn just how dangerous primitives can be. He walked out, leaving the council in stunned silence. The clock was ticking. 72 hours passed. The Council of 12 sent their response. It was a declaration of total war. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Admiral read the message and nodded slowly. They chose this, she said to Captain. Remember that. We gave them a chance to end this peacefully. They chose war. They still think they can win, replied. They have thousands of ships, dozens of species, resources we cannot match. They have numbers, set down the message. We have something better, we have Doctor. Doctor was a small woman with thick glasses and wild hair. She did not look like a weapon. She looked like someone who forgot to eat because she was too busy thinking. But in her mind lived the secrets that had changed everything. She stood before a gathering of admirals and commanders, displaying holographic images of alien technology. For 300 years, the sovereignty shared technology with us, she explained. They gave us communication devices, medical equipment, power systems. They thought these gifts would keep us dependent on them. They thought we could not understand how they worked. She smiled. It was not a kind smile. They were wrong. We took apart every device they gave us. We studied every component. We learned their science, their engineering, their principles. And then we did something they never expected. She changed the display to show human warships. We improved on it. Our shields are stronger than theirs. Our weapons are more powerful. Our engines are faster. And our fold drive is something they cannot even begin to understand. She looked at the assembled officers. They thought they were watching primitives with basic rockets. They were watching students who had already surpassed the teachers. Fleet Admiral leaned forward. He was an aggressive commander, always pushing for faster, harder action. So what is the plan, Doctor? We hit their forge worlds, replied. The industrial centers that build their warships. Without new ships, their numbers mean nothing. We use the fold drive to strike and vanish before they can respond. We do not fight their fleets directly. We kill their ability to make more fleets. Grinned, I like this plan. The second Shadow Fleet launched within hours. 150 ships, all equipped with fold drives, all crewed by humans who had waited their entire lives for this moment. Commanded from his flagship, the Thundering Sky, leading strike after strike against sovereignty industrial targets. The Forge world fell in 6 hours. Its orbital factories, which had produced warships for 10,000 years, were reduced to burning wreckage. The shipyards of Prime lasted only 4 hours. Human Marines boarded the stations and planted explosives. while the confused defenders were still trying to figure out how the humans had appeared inside their shields. The supply depot at Nexus Gate held for 12 hours, defended by a sovereignty that fought bravely. But bravery was not enough. Ships appeared behind them, in front of them, above and below them. The aliens could not fight an enemy that was everywhere and nowhere. And with each victory, the sovereignty's alliance began to crack. 3 of the 12 empires had opposed humanity's quarantine from the beginning. They had argued that caging an intelligent species was wrong. They had been ignored. Now, watching the empire burn, they secretly contacted Ambassador Minu. "We want no part of this war," their message said. "We will withdraw our forces. In exchange, we ask that humanity spare our worlds." Minu agreed. The alliance was breaking. But the would not surrender. High Regent refused to accept defeat. He gathered his remaining forces for a final stand at Light, determined to protect his or die trying. It was then that Prince came. He was young for his species, only 200 years old. He was son and heir to the throne, but unlike his father, he had seen the truth. The war was lost. Continuing to fight would only bring more death. He traveled to the Eternal Dawn alone, in an unarmed shuttle, asking to speak with Admiral. She agreed to meet him. They stood in her private office, 2 enemies facing each other across a table. Was tall and thin, with the gray skin and ritual scars of nobility. Was human, small compared to him, but her presence filled the room. "You killed millions of my people," said. "My father's stations, his fleets, his soldiers, all destroyed." Nodded, "Yes. I came to show you something." He placed a data chip on the table. "The colony attacks. My father ordered them without the council's full approval. It was his decision alone. 3 other council members objected, but he ignored them." Picked up the chip. "Why show me this?" "Because I want you to understand. Not all of us wanted this. Not all of us saw humanity as insects to be crushed. My father," paused. "My father is old. He remembers when they conquered entire galaxies. He cannot accept that those days are over." "Your father murdered 2 million people," said quietly. "Children, he murdered children." "I know," the prince's voice was heavy. "I have seen the recordings. What he did was monstrous. I am not here to defend him. I am here to ask for mercy. Not for him, but for my people, the civilians of Slight. They did not order those attacks. They do not deserve to die for my father's crimes." Studied him for a long moment. Then she pressed a button on her desk. A screen lit up showing images, bodies in the streets of Verdant 7, burning buildings on New, mass graves on Hope's Landing. "Do you see this?" she asked. Looked, his face went pale. "Your father's order," said. "Your father's choice, and now your father's consequence." She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. "We are not like the sovereignty," she continued. "We do not murder civilians. We do not burn worlds. Your people will not be harmed, but your father will face justice. He will stand trial for what he did. The galaxy will see his crimes, and they will see him pay for them. And then we rebuild, all of us, humans and everyone else who wants a galaxy where this never happens again." She turned back to face him. "Go back to your father. Tell him his empire ends today. He can surrender and face trial, or he can fight and watch his burn. The choice is his." Bowed his head. "I will tell him." 12 hours later, the siege of Slight began. They fought hard, but they could not fight physics. Human ships appeared inside their defense lines, destroying stations, disabling ships, blocking escape routes. High Regent ordered his fleet to fight to the last ship. They tried. It was not enough. In the end, was captured alive. His flagship was boarded by human marines. They found him on his bridge, surrounded by dead guards, still trying to give orders to ships that no longer existed. "You should have killed me," he snarled as they put restraints on him. The Marine commander, a young woman named, shook her head. Death would be easy, she said. Justice is harder. You're going to live, you're going to stand trial, and you're going to spend the rest of your very long life knowing that humanity defeated you. She smiled. Welcome to the new galaxy. 1 year had passed since the war began, 8 months since it ended, and the galaxy was a very different place. The galactic sovereignty no longer existed. In its place stood the Galactic Compact, a new alliance built on different principles: equal rights for all species, free travel between systems, no quarantines, no cages. No species would ever again be labeled primitive and locked away to die. The trial of High Regent was broadcast across every world in the galaxy. He stood before a court of judges from 12 different species, including humans. The evidence was overwhelming. Records of his orders, recordings of the colony attacks, testimony from survivors. There was no defense that could save him. Guilty, the court declared. Guilty of crimes against sentience. Guilty of mass murder. Guilty of attempting genocide. The sentence was life imprisonment. For a species that lived 1,000 years, this meant 6 centuries in a cell. Would have plenty of time to think about what he had done. Some people thought he should have been executed, but humanity had chosen a different path. Death was too easy. Justice meant facing your crimes every day forever. Fleet Marshal, as she was now called, stood before the new galactic assembly on Nexus Prime. The great chamber that had once been filled with emperors and tyrants now held representatives from 30 species. Some had been enemies. Some were new allies. All were watching the human who had changed everything. 1 year ago, began, her voice calm and steady, humanity was a caged species. We were watched, controlled, and confined to a single system. When we tried to grow, when we tried to give our children new worlds, we were punished with death. She paused, looking around the chamber. We did not want war. We wanted to explore, to learn, to grow alongside you. We reached out in peace, and we were answered with chains. We built colonies in secret, and they were answered with fire. Her voice grew harder. 2.3 million of our people died because we dared to be more than you allowed. Children died in their schools. Families died in their homes. Entire cities burned because one old tyrant could not accept that humanity was not his to control. The chamber was silent. Many of the representatives could not meet her eyes. But we are not here for revenge. We are not here to build a new empire with humanity at the top. We are here to build something better. His voice softened slightly. The old sovereignty was built on fear. Fear of other species. Fear of change. Fear of anything that challenged the power of the few. That fear led to cages, quarantines, and finally genocide. The Galactic Compact will be different. It will be built on respect. Every species has value. Every species has the right to grow, to explore, to reach for the stars. No one will be caged. No one will be labeled primitive. No one will be murdered for daring to be more. She raised her hand, and a holographic document appeared above her. This is the new charter: equal rights, free movement, shared knowledge, protection for all. Any species that signs this charter becomes our partner, not our subject. Any species that threatens another will face the consequences together. Ambassador Minu, standing beside her, smiled. He had spent 30 years playing the fool. Now he was one of the architects of a new galactic order. We are not perfect, continued. Humanity has made mistakes in its history. We have fought wars among ourselves. We have hurt each other, but we have also learned. We have learned that strength without justice is just another form of tyranny. We have learned that peace requires work, requires trust, requires the courage to face old enemies and build new friendships. She looked around the chamber one final time. The war is over. The question now is, what do we build from here? We are offering you a future where every species matters, where your children can grow up without fear, where the stars belong to everyone. Will you join us? One by one, the representatives stood. One by one, they signaled their agreement. Not all of them were happy. Not all of them trusted humanity yet. But they could see that the old ways were gone and the only path forward was together. Far across the galaxy, on the rebuilt world of Verdant 7, Commander walked through streets that were no longer burning. New buildings rose where rubble had been. Parks bloomed with flowers. Children played in schoolyards, their laughter echoing in the clean air. The colony that had nearly died was coming back to life. And there, sitting on a bench near a memorial for the fallen, was. She was 8 years old now. Her hair was longer. Her eyes were no longer empty. She was reading a book about stars and planets, about the galaxy that waited beyond her world. Sat down beside her. "What are you reading?" she asked. Held up the book. "It's about explorers, people who go to new places and discover new things." She looked up at. "I want to be an explorer when I grow up. I want to see everything." Smiled. A year ago, this girl had lost everything. Now she was dreaming about the future. "I think you'd be a great explorer," said. "The galaxy is very big, lots of places to discover." "Will there be more wars?" asked quietly. Thought about the question. She could not promise there would never be another war. The galaxy was vast and it held many dangers, but she could promise something else. "Maybe," she said honestly, "but if there are, we will be ready, and we will always protect each other. That's what humanity does." Nodded, seeming satisfied with this answer. She went back to her book. In orbit above Verdant 7, the flagship Endless Dawn waited. Admiral, promoted after the war, stood on the bridge. Around him, the crew prepared for their next mission. Not a mission of war this time, a mission of exploration. The galaxy was vast. Beyond the old sovereignty's borders lay unknown space, unmapped systems, mysteries waiting to be discovered. Humanity had spent 3 centuries in a cage. Now, finally, they were free. "Sir," a young officer said, "all ships report ready. The fleet is waiting for your order." Looked out at the stars. 2,000 human ships, 3,000 allied vessels from species that had joined the compact. All of them ready to explore, to discover, to push the boundaries of the known. "What's out there, sir?" the officer asked. Smiled. It was the same smile he had worn on that first day, when he stood beside Admiral and watched the fleets wake up. But now it was not a smile of war. It was a smile of hope. "Everything," he said, "everything is out there and we're going to find it." He gave the order. All ships engage fold drives. Destination, the unknown. The fleet shimmered and vanished, traveling toward the edge of mapped space, toward new stars and new worlds and new possibilities. Behind them, Verdant 7 continued to heal. Light began its transformation under new leadership. The Galactic Compact grew stronger with each passing day. And somewhere, in a cell on a distant world, an old tyrant sat in the dark and thought about all the things he had lost. Humanity had been underestimated. Humanity had been caged. Humanity had been attacked. And humanity had risen. Not to conquer, not to enslave, but to build something better. A galaxy where every species mattered. A galaxy where no one would ever be caged again. The stars were no longer silent. They were singing with the engines of 1,000 ships, carrying hope into the infinite dark. And the future was just beginning.